Ever get that shiver down your spine? You know that feeling when you realize just how easily someone could hack into your life?
It can be pretty unnerving when you think about it.
1 minute you're clicking a link, probably for a free cat video, let's be real.
We've all been there.
And the next thing you know, bam, your passwords are out in the open, your bank accounts are drained.
It's a scary thought, but it's the reality we live in.
Exactly. And that's why we're diving headfirst into the world of ethical hacking today.
We're going to arm you with the knowledge to fight back against those digital threats.
Think of it like learning the secret language of cybersecurity.
But instead of using it for evil, you're using it to build Fort Knox around your digital life.
I love that analogy. And our guidebook for this mission, the Cybersecurity Bible we'll be referencing, is Karina Estudillo's Hacking Etico.
It's a fantastic resource, a practical guide that doesn't just tell you what hackers do, but how they actually do it, you know?
Right, it's about getting into their heads, understanding their tactics.
Exactly.
So before we break down her framework, let's talk about Karina herself. She's not just an expert, she's like a veteran of the cybersecurity world.
Oh, absolutely. Her background is fascinating. She's worked with the giants, companies like IBM.
Wow, IBM, that's huge.
And then she went on to found her own security firm, Elixir Corp.
Wait, hold on, back up a bit. She founded her own security firm.
Yep, that's Karina for you.
That's seriously impressive.
Right. And get this, she even started out by teaching, giving back to the community.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, at her alma mater, East Pole, in Ecuador. Talk about a well-rounded resume.
So we've established that Karina knows her stuff, she's been there, done that. But let's get specific. Her book talks about ethical hacking in 5 distinct phases, is that right?
Exactly, 5 phases. And what's interesting is that these phases aren't linear, like steps 1 through 5. They often loop back on themselves, as the ethical hacker dives deeper.
So it's not a straight line from A to B, it's more like a spiral, constantly circling back with new information.
Exactly, a spiral. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's start unpacking these phases. What's the first move in our ethical hacking playbook?
Imagine you're a detective starting a new case, right?
Okay, I can see where you're going with this.
You wouldn't just kick down the door without gathering some intel first, would you?
Of course not. You need a plan.
Exactly. That's where reconnaissance comes in. This first phase is all about discreetly gathering information about the target without raising any alarms.
So we're talking about figuring out the lay of the land before making any moves, but what kind of information are we talking about here?
Everything and anything that could be useful. Think IP addresses, network maps, even employee names, anything that could reveal vulnerabilities.
So it's about finding those cracks in the armor, those weak points that a hacker could exploit.
You got it. Ethical hackers might even use techniques like Google dorking to uncover this information.
Okay, stop right there. Google dorking. That sounds way too cool to be a real thing.
Oh, it's real, and it's as intriguing as it sounds. You know how you could use quotes in Google to search for an exact phrase?
Yeah, I use that all the time.
Well, Google dorking takes that to a whole new level. It involves using special search operators to find very specific types of information, like exposed documents or hidden web pages, even vulnerable systems.
So you're telling me there's a whole secret Google language out there that ethical hackers use to find hidden vulnerabilities?
You got it.
Yeah.
And that's just one tool in their arsenal?
There's more.
Oh yeah, lots more. There's also DNS lookups, which help them understand how a target's website is structured, and whois searches, which can reveal the owner of a website or domain name.
Wow, I had no idea. But gathering this information is only half the battle, right?
Right.
They need tools to analyze it all, to connect the dots and make sense of it. What do ethical hackers use? What's Karina recommend?
2 words, Maltego and Visual Root.
Okay, Maltego, Visual Root. I'm taking notes here. What are those?
Imagine Maltego is this giant digital detective board.
Okay.
It helps visualize connections between seemingly unrelated pieces of information, like websites, IP addresses, and even people, helping ethical hackers see the bigger picture.
So it's like connecting the dots in a criminal investigation, except instead of red string, they're using algorithms.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. And what about Visual Route?
Visual Route, that's like a virtual map of the internet.
Okay.
It lets ethical hackers trace the path of data packets, showing the exact route that information takes to travel from one point to another.
So they can see the journey that data takes as it moves across the web.
Yep, which can be super helpful for understanding network flow and identifying potential bottlenecks.
That's incredible. So using these tools, ethical hackers can build a pretty detailed profile of their target, right? But what's next? They've scoped out the scene. Do they just kick down the door and go in?
Not quite. They wouldn't last very long if they did that.
That's true.
That brings us to phase 2, scanning. Now that they have a basic understanding of the target, it's time to roll up their sleeves and start poking around a bit more aggressively.
Time to get our hands dirty, huh?
You could say that.
I like it.
In this phase, ethical hackers use tools to probe the target system, looking for any potential entry points, much like checking for unlocked doors and windows.
I'm with you.
And their tool of choice for this is often Nmap, which Karina calls the Swiss Army knife of port scanners in her book.
Nmap, that name rings a bell. What's so special about it?
Well, Nmap is incredibly versatile. It sends special packets of data to a target system and analyzes the responses to tell you which ports are open, what services are running, and even what operating system is being used.
So it's like knocking on every door to see who answers and then trying to figure out what kind of house they live in based on the furniture you can peek at through the window.
Exactly.
I love that.
And the beauty of Nmap is that it comes with all these options for customizing your scans, making it incredibly powerful for ethical hackers.
Okay, so say they've used Nmap, they found some open doors. What's next? Do they just waltz right in?
Well, just because a door's unlocked doesn't mean you should just waltz right in.
Good point.
That's where vulnerability scanners come into play.
Ah, okay, I see. So Nmap is finding the open doors, and vulnerability scanners are telling us if those doors are, like, flimsy or have faulty locks.
Precisely. And Karina highlights a tool called Nexpose that takes this to the next level.
Nexpose, got it. What's this one all about?
Well, Nmap gives you that broad overview, right? Nexpose is like bringing in a team of specialists to do a deep dive.
Oh, okay, so it's getting into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. It digs deeper to find things like software flaws, misconfigurations, basically any weak spot that a hacker could exploit.
Wow, so we're talking about uncovering those hidden cracks in the system that most people wouldn't even know existed.
Exactly. And the best part is that Nexpose doesn't just point out the problems, it actually gives you this detailed report, risk levels, even suggest ways to fix those vulnerabilities before someone with bad intentions finds them.
That's amazing. So using these tools, ethical hackers can build a pretty comprehensive understanding of a system's weaknesses. But I have a feeling this is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
You're right. Knowing about vulnerabilities is one thing, but actually exploiting them, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. This sounds like it's going to be good.
Remember how we talked about ethical hacking being like a spiral?
Yeah, the whole constantly circling back to previous phases thing.
Exactly. Well, now we're entering the loop where things get real.
Okay, things are about to get interesting.
We've gathered our intel, we've mapped the terrain, and now it's time to see if we can actually breach the defenses.
This is the part I've been waiting for. Go time!
It's go time. Phase 3 is all about gaining access. And just like a real hacker, an ethical hacker has a whole bag of tricks they can use.
Let's dive into this hacker's toolkit. What's the first weapon of choice?
One word, Metasploit.
Metasploit. Okay, I've heard that name before, but what is it exactly?
Think of it as the ultimate hacking playground, but in a safe and controlled environment, of course.
Right, of course, we're not trying to break any laws here.
Exactly. It's about responsible exploration. So Metasploit. Imagine this giant library filled with blueprints for exploiting every security flaw imaginable.
Wait, so it's like having a master key that can open a whole bunch of different locks.
That's a great analogy. And it's constantly being updated with new exploits as vulnerabilities are discovered.
That makes sense. Cybersecurity is like a constantly evolving arms race.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, there's Armitage.
Armitage. Okay, now you're just throwing out cool names. What does this one do?
Armitage. Think of it like Metasploit's more user-friendly cousin. It provides a visual interface, makes it easier to navigate through the process of selecting and launching exploits. Imagine a high-tech control panel with buttons and graphs.
So instead of just typing in code, you can actually see what's happening in real time.
Exactly. It's all about visualization.
That's amazing, but it also sounds, I don't know, a bit dangerous. What's stopping someone from using these tools for less than ethical purposes?
That's the crucial difference.
Yep.
Ethical hackers use these tools to find and fix vulnerabilities before someone with malicious intent can exploit them.
Right. It's all about staying one step ahead of the bad guys.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got Metasploit and Armitage for actually getting into the system. What other tools do ethical hackers have up their sleeves? What about phishing?
Ah, yes, phishing. That's where SET comes in.
Sad.
The social engineering toolkit.
Right. The art of hacking humans instead of machines. I'm ready to get sneaky.
Set is all about crafting those oh-so-convincing phishing campaigns.
The ones that can trick even the most tech-savvy person into clicking that malicious link.
Exactly. It provides templates, tools, everything you need to create fake websites, spoof emails. You can even set up fake login pages that look incredibly convincing.
I'm actually kind of scared to ask, but have you ever used SIP before?
Let's just say I've run a few simulations. And Karina actually describes a case in her book where she used SET to create this phishing campaign that looked exactly like a legitimate email from Gmail.
Wait, seriously? And people fell for that?
You'd be surprised how effective social engineering can be. It preys on our natural trust, our desire for convenience.
It's kind of scary how easily we can be tricked sometimes.
That's why it's such a valuable tool for ethical hackers. It helps them identify those weaknesses in human behavior that could be exploited by, well, the not-so-ethical hackers.
So Metasploit, Armitage, SET, those are some pretty powerful tools. But gaining access, that's just the beginning, right? What happens once they're inside?
That's an excellent question, and it leads us to phase 4, maintaining access.
Maintaining access. So we're talking about staying hidden, becoming invisible.
This is where things get really stealthy.
Okay, now I'm imagining like spies sneaking through laser beams and stuff.
In a way, yes. They create what are called backdoors.
Backdoor.
These are hidden ways to maintain access to the system, even if that original vulnerability is patched.
So even if the front door gets locked, they've still got a secret way in. Clever.
It's all about persistence. And a good ethical hacker will document these backdoors, of course, so they can be removed later.
Right, because leaving them open would be like, well, a real security risk.
Exactly.
But I imagine they can't just hang out inside forever, right? Eventually, they need to make a clean getaway.
Precisely. And that's where the 5th and final phase comes in, covering their tracks.
The digital equivalent of wiping down fingerprints and disappearing into the night.
Exactly. Ethical hackers are meticulous about erasing their digital footprints.
So they delete logs, modify timestamps, basically do everything they can to make it look like they were never there.
You got it. It's about being thorough. A good ethical hacker needs to think like a malicious hacker to stay one step ahead.
That's both impressive and a little unnerving.
And that means leaving no evidence behind.
Okay, so we've covered the 5 phases of ethical hacking: reconnaissance, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, and covering tracks. We've seen the tools, the techniques, the strategies, but I have a feeling there's more to it than just technical skills, Ron.
You are absolutely right.
What about the human element? All those things that make a good ethical hacker, well, ethical.
You're thinking about things like integrity, empathy, a strong moral compass.
Yeah, exactly.
You're spot on. Ethical hacking is as much about mindset and methodology as it is about tools and techniques.
So it's not just about what you can do, but how and why you do it.
Exactly. And that's where Karina's insights from the field become so valuable.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear what Karina has to say about the art of ethical hacking. So we've covered a lot of ground, the phases of ethical hacking, all those cool tools, the hacker mindset. But what really stood out to me in Hacking Etico were Karina's personal anecdotes, her practical tips from the field.
Oh, absolutely. It's like having this seasoned mentor guiding you through the trenches of cybersecurity, giving you that insider's perspective.
Exactly. And one of the things she really stressed was the importance of documentation, right?
Oh, 100%. And it's not just about taking notes. It's about meticulous documentation, creating a detailed record of every single step you take during a penetration test.
Which makes sense, because in the heat of the moment, things can get pretty intense, and it's easy to forget those little details that could be important later on.
Exactly. You don't want to be scrambling later trying to remember what you did or why you did it.
Yeah.
Karina actually recommends creating a dedicated project folder for each penetration test.
So like a detective's case file.
Exactly. A case file where you're logging every command you execute, every piece of data you uncover, every vulnerability you find. You're building this rock-solid case.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about writing things down, right? Karina also talks about the importance of capturing visual evidence as well.
Absolutely. Screenshots, videos, network diagrams, those visual aids are crucial, especially when you're presenting your findings to a client.
Because it's one thing to tell someone they have a security hole. It's another thing entirely to show them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Right. And speaking of visuals, Karina introduces some interesting software that ethical hackers use to organize all this information. I think one was called Tradas.
Tradas, yes. It's fantastic for centralizing all your information. You can pin up your notes, screenshots, findings, everything in one place. Makes it super easy to analyze and generate reports.
Okay, so it's like bringing those detective boards you see in movies into the digital age.
Exactly. And then there's Magic Tree, which is more visually oriented.
Magic tree. I like the sound of that.
It lets you create these network diagrams that show the relationships between different pieces of information.
So you can see the bigger picture, understand how vulnerabilities in one part of a system might affect other areas. That's really cool. But let's not forget, ethical hacking isn't just about technical skills, right? Karina also emphasizes the importance of communication, of being able to explain what you're doing and why it matters.
100%. You need to be able to communicate your findings clearly and effectively, even to someone who doesn't have a technical background.
Right, because you don't want your client to feel like they're back in school trying to decipher a foreign language.
Exactly. And it's not just about explaining things clearly. It's about building trust, being professional, making sure your client feels confident that you have their best interests at heart.
So it's really a multifaceted skill set. It's about technical expertise, of course, but also communication, problem solving, critical thinking, and a strong ethical compass.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's about combining all of these skills to become a trusted advisor in the field of cybersecurity.
Wow, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of ethical hacking. We've covered so much ground. We talked about the phases of ethical hacking, all those amazing tools and techniques, the importance of documentation, and even the ethical considerations that come with this line of work.
And let's not forget the importance of continuous learning. Cybersecurity is constantly evolving, so ethical hackers, they always need to be learning, always staying ahead of the curve.
That's a great reminder. This deep dive has definitely sparked my curiosity and made me want to learn even more.
Well, if you're looking for a place to start, I highly recommend checking out Karina Astudillo's book, Hacking Etico.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to learn more about this fascinating field, no matter your skill level.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of ethical hacking. I hope you enjoyed the journey. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about cybersecurity, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself and your data. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and stay one step ahead.